A clip has gone viral from Jubilee's Surrounded show. This is the show that I was on a month ago. It's the show where one person surrounded by 20 or 25 people who disagree with him, and he's got to just debate them successively. So it was me versus 20 or 25 LGBT LMNOP activists. That was an hour and 40 minutes. You can go watch it over at the Jubilee channel. This week's episode was with a left-wing political commentator named Sam Seder. And Sam Seder showed up and he was surrounded by, I guess, 20 or 25 conservatives. They were debating all sorts of questions, one of which was religious fundamentalism. We'll get to that in a moment. The other of which was immigration. And so he's sitting down next to this right-wing journalist, Sarah Stock, and they're just getting down to brass tacks on immigration. And Sam Seder cannot believe the things that she is saying. Take a listen.
What's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
Xenophobic nationalism is better?
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture.
White Christian,
it's rooted in European identity.
So your argument is that
has been the dominant culture.
Just to be clear.
And we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of America...
For the majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been,
Okay, let's put a pause right here before he gets into what it means. I love how he's stalling. He doesn't know how to respond to her. Well, no, actually, what's her argument? She's using a provocative slogan, no doubt. Xenophobic nationalism. This is a scare phrase used by the left. And so she is provocatively throwing that phrase back at the left. But what's she saying? Xenophobic, meaning preferring one's own countrymen to foreigners, and nationalism, meaning preferring the nation to a kind of borderless liberal globalism. Well, that's what most American voters voted for in November. Not exactly in those terms, not in such sensationalist rhetoric, but that is what people voted for. And then Sam Seder says, well, hold on. You're telling me you think there's a dominant culture in America? She says, of course there's a dominant culture. There's a dominant culture in any polity. Of course there is. Culture is defined by something, and whatever it is defined by is the dominant aspect of the culture. Okay, well, you're telling me that America traditionally has been defined by European culture and Christianity? She says, yes. But could you disagree with that? Would anybody seriously disagree with that? In 1960, she says it has been, at least until very recently. In 1960, 93% of Americans were Christian. In 1960, just under 90% of Americans were white, so descended from Europeans. America, really, whatever view you take of the Mayflower, great cigar brand, and the American founding, the Revolutionary War, and the 19th century up through the 20th century, can you really argue it didn't come from European values, European institutions? We were a British colony. What is your argument? The American Revolution was influenced by the European Enlightenment, for better and worse. The founding of America at Plymouth Colony was a separatist movement from England. America doesn't just exist in outer space or something like that. It's not just floating through the ether. It comes from historical movements developed by real people from real places. You might say, well, that's terrible. I hate Europe. Or you might say, that's terrible. I hate Christianity. I wish America weren't like that. You can make that argument. The left makes that argument all day long. But if you're this guy, if you're the liberal guy on this, you're really going to be confused by the idea that America comes from Europe and that the religion that has dominated in America has been Christianity. I mean, John Adams says the principles on which the revolution was won were the principles of Christianity. John Jay goes further. He says, thank God that we all descend from the same stock and that we all have the same religion and we all believe basically the same stuff. And you can find similar writings throughout many, many other founding fathers and framers of our Constitution. And you can just look at the demographics, religious, ethnic, national, all the rest. We didn't have mass migration of the sort that we're looking at today until the mid-1960s. So things start to change. But even still, most Americans are at least vaguely Christian. And I guess the majority of Americans are still white. So it's 60%, so it's obviously much lower than you. So I don't know, regardless of whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, how could this liberal guy be confused by that? Is he's really that ignorant of not just what his opponents believe, but of American history? Jubilee podcast surrounded lib Sam Seder versus conservative Sarah Stock. Keep going.
The identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means?
No.
Okay, so he says, no, it's a melting pot. And she says, yeah, that's how we view it since the 1960s. It goes back a little earlier. The term melting pot comes from a play by a playwright named Israel Zangwill in 1908. And curiously, Teddy Roosevelt went to see this play and loved it so much. He said, Mr. Zangwill, this is a great play. I love this play. And the notion of America being this melting together of different identities goes back earlier than 1908. So it had been building for some time. But then she hits the real point there, which is, well, hold on. A melting pot means assimilation. A melting pot is not a salad bowl, for instance. It's not that you keep your distinct identities, the tomatoes over here and the cucumbers over here and the lettuces over here. The melting pot means you all melt together. And Zangwill, who wrote the play, The Melting Pot, actually explained this 5 years after it was first produced. He said, the process of American amalgamation is not assimilation or simple surrender to the dominant type, as is popularly supposed, but an all-around give and take by which the final type may be enriched or impoverished. So he's saying, it's not that you totally give up your identity. When the Italians came here, for instance, they didn't totally give up their identity. When the Irish came here, they didn't totally give up their identity, but they largely did. To the point that, just to use the Italians, partially my people as an example, you can no longer predict an Italian American's political views and behaviors based on their ethnicity. You get Nancy Pelosi on the left, you get Antonin Scalia on the right. You get Andrew Cuomo on the left, you get Michael Knowles, who that's the English name from my father's side, but I got a lot of Italians on the other side, on the right. You can't tell. The Italians have assimilated, and they've added to American culture. Mob movies are a big part of our popular entertainment. People really love pizza. Certain Italian expressions have gained traction. But they've also surrendered a lot of Italian stuff. So what Sarah Stock is saying here, the point she's making is almost entirely correct. She says, look, we're not just a melting pot. Like, we come from a real culture. But even if we were a melting pot, that means that you do at least largely give up your identity. You contribute a little, but you give up your identity to assimilate to this new kind of identity, which is the American identity. And then they conclude on the biggest head scratcher.
And now instead we're saying there's something wrong with xenophobia.
Culture. No. I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. You and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice. And I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about. And I think that's problematic.
I disagree. I don't think Trump's anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Trump's basically a Democrat from 15 years ago when it comes to social issues.
So you don't.
I love this point. And I think President Trump would agree with that. I think a lot of Trump voters would agree with that. He'd say, he's waving the rainbow flag. Trump he doesn't care that much about, hard right-wing traditionalist social conservatism. That's how he got people like Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Rogan and most voters to vote with him. He's the center. Trump is the center. Trump is the mainstream. It's the left that is extreme now. But Trump is, he's not Sam Seder saying, well, this kind of extreme right-wing rhetoric, that's why people vote for Trump. She goes, what are you talking about? He says, I just disagree with you. I got to be honest with you. Whenever someone says, I got to be honest with you, as a preface to their statement, what they are admitting is that they are regularly not honest with you. They previously have been dishonest with you. So he says that. He says, well, I got to be honest with you. I just don't agree that America, what? That America has a religion? You don't agree? You don't agree. We have In God We Trust in our national anthem and on our money. We were founded by people who called themselves pilgrims. Okay? The founding fathers and the framers wrote extensively about the importance of Christianity to the country. And you're telling me we don't have a religion. We don't have a founding stock of people. No, not England. It's not the Dutch. It's not, it's Martians. I don't know what it is. There's no religion. There's no founding stock. There are no traditions. There's no common morality. There's really no geography. So what is America? Matt Walsh asked this question yesterday. It's probably going to be his next movie. That's going to complete the trilogy. What is America? But the answer from the libs on the left and the right is, well, America's an idea. Merely an idea. Floating in outer space, in the ether. Except, when they say that, they say, America's an idea. You say, okay, what's the idea? At least the people who say that on the right, well, they'll say, well, it's the idea of individual liberty and it's the idea of free association. And they'll give you some answer from late 20th century libertarian readings of the American founding. And it might be right, it might be wrong, but at least they'll give you an answer. You ask the left, what's the idea of America? They won't give you an answer because the left-wing liberal project is about surpassing all limits. It's about maximizing individual autonomy. It's about breaking down anything that might circumscribe choice. So if you say, well, what's the idea? America's just an idea. Okay, what's the idea of America? They can't tell you, because to say America is this idea is simultaneously to say that America is not that idea, which contradicts this idea. And they can't do that. America's got to be everything to everyone for all times. America, the idea would have to contradict Aristotle's law of non-contradiction, because it would have to include every idea. So to the left, America is not even just an idea. America is an idea of an idea. It is so radically abstract that it's nothing. And in practice, when the left governs, America is nothing. It has no border. It has no tradition. It has no common language. It's nothing. It's a vacuum. Right now, go to goodranchers.com, use code Knowles. Over 140,000 family farms across America have shut down since 2017. Why? Because grocery chains keep pushing cheap imported meat instead of supporting the folks who live and work right here in the USA. So this spring, let's spring into action, make a real difference. Everything Good Ranchers offers is 100% American sourced. That means every juicy steak, chicken breast, and pork chop comes from farms right here in America. And especially if these tariffs go through, you're really going to want it. But just the quality alone. Okay, I had a nice Sunday dinner with friends of ours, and we it's a black tie dinner. But we take it very seriously, and we served Good Ranchers steak. Now, Elisa wanted to slice the steak. Sweet little Elisa likes where you slice it. I don't like that. I want a full steak to myself. So we served a couple of ribeyes to our guests, a couple of New York strips. I had a New York strip, which is my preferred one, but the ribeye is amazing too. I think Elisa had the ribeye, and it's just unbelievable. There was a little baby at this dinner. He ate basically half a steak just to himself. The quality is so good. The taste is so good. The price cannot be beat anywhere. And it's all from America. Go to Good Ranchers right now. And you will get to choose free bacon, ground beef, seed oil-free chicken nuggets, or salmon in every single order for a full year, plus an extra $40 off with code Knowles. Go right now, goodranchers.com, code Knowles. I will move on from this Jubilee episode, but it was fascinating. And this guy in particular was a really interesting guest on the Jubilee episode, because the format it has seemed to be is you get one conservative to debate 24 libs. The first guest was Charlie Kirk. Ben Shapiro went on there. Lila Rose went on there. I went on there. And I have no false modesty here, generally seems to be the rule that the conservative is surrounded by 24 libs and the conservative beats all the libs. It seems to be the structure of the show, okay? Listen, false modesty is a form of pride, and so I will admit, not just for me, but for the other 3 conservatives too, they generally won pretty decisively. In this case, the lib facing off against the 20 conservatives, he lost. He didn't come, even if you're a big fan of this guy or whatever I don't follow his stuff at all, but I've heard of him at least. I know he's a liberal commentator, and he did not do as well as the conservatives did against the libs. You saw the exchange with Sarah Stock. Here's another exchange. I wish I had this guy's name. I just started following him on X yesterday, but I don't have his name off the top of my head. Another conservative comes up to debate religious fundamentalism. And here, Sam Seder's ideological confusion or philosophical confusion becomes even more manifest.
Hey. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Okay, so I would like to touch on the religious fundamentalist aspect.
Yeah.
Are you an atheist?
I'm a Reformed Jew. I don't have a strong belief in the existence of God, but I don't think that religion in and of itself is bad.
Okay, so what's wrong with religious fundamentalists? So like when you said trans rights and women's rights or something like that?
Well, the problem I have with religious fundamentalists, and really more, I guess it's really theocrats, is that they want to impose their morality that comes from their religion on the rest of us, and I don't. But
morality, from your view, is going to be a preference, right? It's not morality; it's a preference. So morality without a foundation is going to reduce you to a preference.
Well, I have a foundation for my morality.
Which is what?
It's a humanist vision of what basically creates as little suffering as possible for as many people.
Okay, so you're like a consequentialist? Utilitarian?
I don't really bother myself with being a consequentialist or a utilitarian.
Okay, what is remarkable about this exchange is not that Sam Seder is a leftist or that his interlocutor is a conservative. What is remarkable about this exchange is that the leftist taking on the 24 conservatives doesn't know what he himself believes. What's remarkable about this exchange? It's not that the leftist doesn't understand what the conservatives believe, that we expect. The leftist doesn't understand the basic premises of his own arguments. He says, look, I don't like religious fundamentalism. He never really defines it. He's obviously confused about it. I don't like theocrats. He clearly doesn't know what a theocrat is because a theocracy is government by religious clerics. But here he's using theocracy to mean government by people who have religious views, which is all governments for all time. And certainly we have a self-government, we're a people that have religious views. So he's totally confused about what theocracy means. But so the interlocutor says, what is the basis of your morality? Is it just preference, just whatever you feel like, which is sort of what it seems like? And Seder says, no, it's not that. And he's kind of stumbling around. He says, I want to reduce suffering for the greatest number of people possible. Okay, now that is a moral view. That is the view of Peter Singer, for instance, who is a professor at Princeton. And the interlocutor rightly says, he said, okay, so you're a consequentialist. Your ethics is a consequentialist ethics. And Seder looks really confused. He says, humana. He says, utilitarian. Utilitarianism is a subset of consequentialist ethics. And Seder looks at him and says, I'm not a consequentialist or a utilitarian. But it wasn't like really a question to him. The interlocutor was helping him. He was saying, the thing you've just described by definition is a form of utilitarian ethics, specifically one advocated not even just by John Stuart Mill or Jeremy Bentham, but most recently by Peter Singer. That's your view. And so the question then becomes, well, why is that your view? I guess the grounding of my ethics is that good is to be done and evil is to be avoided. That's different than his utilitarianism, which is just minimize suffering for the greatest number of people possible. It reveals a great distinction between classical political philosophy and liberal political philosophy. Classical political philosophy pursuing the greatest good, the summum bonum, the common good, recognizing that there is such a thing as a common good in society. Liberal political philosophy, beginning with Thomas Hobbes, saying that basically there is no common good, we can't really understand a greatest good. The only thing that we could even define as a common good is peace to save us from the war of all against all, in which life is nasty, brutish, and short. And so really what we're after culture is not pursuing the greatest good, but avoiding the greatest evil, which is death, suffering and death. That's kind of where that comes from. So it's an interesting political divide, and it could have been an interesting conversation, except the left, this guy showed up. He's supposed to be one of the better people on the left to articulate his views. He doesn't even know what he believes. Also, it's not like this guy is 22 years old. I think this guy's pushing 60, okay? This guy's had a long time to figure out what he thinks. He doesn't even know what he thinks. I think this is true broadly with the left, and it's why our political debates are largely fruitless. And this is backed up by social science, by the way. I think Jonathan Haidt did a paper on this. It's not just that we're speaking past each other. It's not just that, we have an irreconcilable first principles or something like that. It's even more basic than that. The right understands the left, and the left doesn't understand the right. And so when the left is simply making arguments from ignorance, the bases of which they themselves don't understand. That was a good clip. Now ring the bell, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.